Okay, everybody, it's the Literate Texan, Randy Ray, and I'm back with a very late to be read video for August. There are 9 days left in August, and these are the books, all the books that I would like to read over the next 9 days. And if you've been watching my channel for a while and paying attention, I never finish all the books on my to-be read pile, and I always read a bunch of books that aren't on my to-be read pile. But, okay, so here we go. I'm going to talk about different books in different orders. I want to get in at least one more Star Trek book before the end of Book Trek 2023. So, the one I would really like to read, and I will probably get to this, is this one, Crucible McCoy, Provenance of Shadows. And this was a 40th anniversary celebration series that they did. And they did one of these books for each character. But the premise of this particular book is, if you've seen the City on the Edge of Forever, which is the greatest Star Trek episode of all time, you know that what happens is McCoy goes back in time and changes history so that the Starship Enterprise doesn't exist anymore. And so obviously there have been 3 centuries of an alternate history that went on at some point, but at the very beginning of those 3 centuries of alternate history, McCoy lived out a life on the planet Earth in the 20th century. And this book describes what that alternate life was like. And I don't remember any of the plot details really, other than he falls in love and has a great life. But I do remember that when I read this several years ago, I absolutely loved it. So that is my Book Trek selection. Now I have already read something for Garb August, and I want to show it off here. I read a book called Dirty Harry, Massacre at Russian River. And I finished this the other day. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I like it. Although, and I have 3 of the Dirty Harry novels. There were 12 of them, not including the novelizations of the movies. They started a men's adventure series about Dirty Harry after Clint Eastwood said he wasn't going to make any more Dirty Harry movies. And as the series goes along, of course, in the first 2 issues of the series, the artwork, really does look like Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry, but in this one, it does not. Anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'll have more to say about it during my reading wrap up for the month of August, because I have read some books in the month of August. So, but I just finished a book which is sort of related to Garb August, but not really. This is called My Father the Pornographer, a memoir by Chris Offutt. And this is the reason I mentioned in one of my other videos earlier when I sighed. It's not that I'm bored doing this, it's just that I'm tired because I stayed up till 2 a.m. I don't really go to bed between 9 and 10. But last night I stayed up until 2 a.m. finishing this book because I could not put it down. Absolutely wonderful memoir by Andrew J. Offutt's son, Chris Offutt, who I believe has surpassed his father in terms of literary prestige. But, and I knew Andrew J. Offutt because I was a big fan of the Thieves World miniseries, and I liked the character Shadow Spawn, which he created. But also, I've read some of his Conan fiction. He wrote Conan pastiches, among other science fiction and fantasy things. What I didn't know about Andy Offutt was that he wrote over 400 pornographic novels over the course of decades. And he was really prolific about it. But this book isn't just about how many pornographic novels he wrote. It's actually a really detailed portrait of Chris Offutt's childhood and his relationship with his father. And it was really, really fascinating. It was also interesting to read about the pornographic novel industry, which I'd known nothing about. But, and it inspired me to do some book shopping today. And I went into a bookstore, actually walked into a bookstore for the first time in over 2 years today. I've had some trouble getting around. People know I've got health issues, whatever. But, I'm working really, really hard to change some of those health issues. And I actually went book shopping today, which was such a thrill. But while I was book shopping and inspired by this book, I picked up a vintage pornographic novel, Shadows of Lust, by Ralph Carter. And I want to read the back of this to you. I haven't read this yet, but this is a certainty that I will finish this. for Garb August because I'm just fascinated by the entire idea. But this is what the back cover says: The Shadows of Lust. To Floralton, Susan Martin was a comely, moneyed widow, far too nice a person to remain long unmarried, once the tragic shock of her young husband's sudden death had worn off. But to Dr. James Pettigrew, the psychiatrist to whom Susan went for consultation, an entirely different woman was revealed. Skillfully, which is misspelled by the way, Dr. Pettigrew drew forth from the deep recesses of her mind the complete story of Susan's loves and lusts, of that carnal secret which no one suspected, and of the guilt that made her life a torture. With equal skill, Mr. Carter leads up to his breathless climax in this dynamic story of a woman with a passion-racked body and a ghost-ridden soul. So I think this has got some paranormal stuff going on in here too, but I guess I won't know until I read it. But this was published in 1949, okay? So this is a really old book. 1949 was 75 years ago or something like that. So I'm really looking forward to digging into that for Garb August. Here's the thing about all these reading events. They're great. I love them, but I don't want them to dominate all my reading every month. So I try to mix some other stuff in here. And I've got this book that my daughter wanted me to read with her. We've read all of Emily Henry's novels, or she's read all of Emily Henry's novels. I've read all of Emily Henry novels, save one, Happy Place, which I started last night. I don't think it'll take long to finish, even though it's like 400 pages. For a romance novel by Emily Henry, that's about the length of The Stand. She doesn't generally write lengthy novels like that. Usually we're looking at more like 300, 350 pages. But anyway, the story is about a couple who were engaged to be married. They split up, but every year they go on a vacation with a bunch of close friends to this other woman's parents' vacation home in Maine. And it's been a long-standing tradition that they do this. And they both wind up out there for one of these trips, and it's the last trip they're going to get to have to this vacation home because their parents are selling it. And so they have to pretend to be a couple and participate in their friend's marriage. So my guess is it's going to end with them getting back together. But I don't know. I hadn't read it yet. But that seems to be where these kind of storylines go, right? So anyway, I have to pause real quick just to wet my whistle. Some of the medications I'm taking make me really, dehydrated. So I've got a stack of Garb August choices here too, many of which were chosen by my daughters, but not all of them were. Okay, so I'm going to start with what looks the trashiest to me, and which I have no familiarity with, is one that I picked out today called Outbreak, which included the hyphen that I don't think should be there. A convention hotel teeming with drama and passion and ravaged by a mysterious killer disease by Robert Demaria. And here's the cover. So, there's more on the back and stuff, but this came out, I guess, what's it say on the copyright page here? This is a 1978 horror novel. Haven't read it, don't know anything about it. Cover sure seems lurid enough. It's the right time period. What was that? The era of the trashy paperback. So I'm going to give that a look. But there's also one here, in the 80s and 90s when it came to horror, if Stephen King wrote something that was really successful, you kind of sort of saw knockoffs of that kind of thing. Like, The Stand was followed in short order by a novel called Swan Song by Robert McCammon. And I'm not saying that Robert McCammon was copying Stephen King at all. I've read both novels. They're both excellent. But they're both part of a very specific subgenre that's real common now, this quote-unquote post-apocalyptic fiction. But around the same time came a book called Fire by Alan Rodgers. And I'm not sure if this is garbage or trash or not, but it sure looks like it to me, okay? And even the tagline at the top says, an epic of horror in the best-selling tradition of The Stand and Swan Song. Anyway, this book is called Fire, and it's got a kind of a cool cover, So Anyway, I'm going to read the back of this one to you because, I mean, it's going to give you a real idea of how heavily this relates to Swan Song and also to The Stand. The end of the world has come, but the horror has only begun. The president, a madman with his finger on the button. He's determined to bring the rapture of Armageddon to an evil world. The scientist, he accidentally discovered the cure for death. But for the newly risen, it's not a blessing, only eternal damnation. The preacher, he's taken over the media to spread his apocalyptic message to an army of rabid listeners hell-bent on a second inquisition. The beast, hideously deformed, it stalks the ravaged land, bringing promise and panic with its eerie clairvoyant powers. Now, a small band of men and women, both dead and alive, are being summoned to Heartland America in the ultimate showdown between good and evil, to a clash of forces beyond their wildest nightmares, to an orgy of violence where not even death can end the torments of the flesh. Prepare for the worst. Get ready to be consumed by fire. Okay, so this sounds obviously clearly derivative of both The Stand and Swan Song, but, might be fun to read. I'm looking forward to digging into it and seeing what it's all about. Also, I sent my daughter to the store the other day. Oh, also, this was on one of my shelves. There was a movie made out of this one. This is Sliver by Ira Levin. I don't know if Ira Levin is too good a writer to be considered trash or not. I really don't. But this is not a novelization of the movie. The movie was a film adaptation of the novel, apparently. So, I don't know. I never saw the movie. It didn't look very good to me. But that's a possibility for Garb August for me too. And then I sent my daughters to the store and I asked them to pick me out some trashy horror paperbacks. Because when it comes to garbage, that's my favorite thing to read is trashy horror paperbacks. And this is what they came back with. So this is exciting stuff because I didn't pick it, my daughters did. The first thing here is Meg, a novel of deep terror by Steve Alten. Okay, so I've heard of some movies, Meg 2, Meg 3, whatever. Apparently, if I understand this correctly, the Meg movies are an adaptation of this novel. This is not a novelization of the movie. But this probably tells you a lot about what you need to know right here. If Michael Crichton and Clive Cussler were to combine their talents to create the ultimate underwater suspense novel, Meg would be the result. A relentlessly frightening page-turner, this year's wet and wild non-stop thrill ride of an adventure. I don't know. Seem trashy to me? We'll find out eventually. This one is called The Werewolf's Kiss, a fast-paced story amidst the rich decadence of New Orleans. And I think if you look at the cover of this, it is pretty darn clear that this is a trashy novel. I don't even think I have to read the back of it, but it's got a blurb from Ray Garton, who's one of my favorite authors, on the back. So anyway, I don't know what it's about, but it says The Werewolf's Kiss. So I imagine there's werewolves in it. There's probably a heaping helping of romance in there too. If there's one thing that werewolves are good for, it's romance. And then I love this cover. This is called The Heat Seekers by Katherine Ramsland. And the tagline at the top says, "These vampires are looking for more than just blood." Well, I don't know what they're looking for besides blood, but I want to find out. You know what I mean? So anyway, that looks good too. This is a Pinnacle paperback, and they stopped publishing print books, I believe, a few years ago. But I used to carry all the Pinnacle horror paperbacks in my store. They were really good for that. I don't think this other one's a Pinnacle. No, this is a publication of iBooks, whatever that was. But anyway, they're relatively new for garbage books and stuff. So those are, how many books is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I finish a book a day, starting tomorrow, I can get all these read this month. Probably not going to happen, folks. But I'll give it a try, and I will do a reading wrap-up at the end of the month to let you know what I did read and what I thought of it. And I guess that's it for my much-belated TBR for August. Forgive me for not getting this up sooner. But until my next video and the next time I get to see you folks again, stay sexy, stay hydrated. and probably staying hydrated right now is a little more important, especially if you're here in Texas with me, where the average temperature for the last month has been, the average high has been 105 degrees here. And on many days it's hit 110. I get out in this heat. Oh, anyway, stay hydrated. For God's sake, please stay hydrated. Thanks for watching.